And we hope that for the next COP, we will come with already a NDC that in order to show our commitment that what is to be done by our side, we are there to do it. Also beside it, we have a project on adaptation. And yes, the fact that we were present also on the Jeff conference, it is a optimistic sign that we might have more access to the funds, to the UNFCCC mechanisms. Although there is still not a specific promise or sign on this. What is to be done by our side is that we will continue taking part in this and lobbying. For the last COP, we had more meetings in which we were lobbying for and to be seen that we are impacting, we are being impacted by climate change, and we should not be left behind. We are there. We are managing the country. We are doing a lot. We have also adopted the strategy for transport, as you mentioned. And I think by this commitment to doing it, we will open these doors, and we will need this access to these vertical funds. For example, especially when it is a matter for, we had help or bilateral agreements and bilateral help when it is a matter of mitigation parts. As for mitigation, there are different helps that we are getting in order to reduce our emissions, and there is a lot that has been done just on the last year. But when it is a matter of adaptation funds, and in order to have access to this, at the moment we are still quite far, and we are in a way quite alone. You mentioned that Kosovo is in a critical position. We need to have huge projects in order to manage our floods, in order to have water on the dry seasons. We are touched by both drought and the floods. There are projects of different reservoirs that will manage our floods, and at the same time that can be used as a potential for green energy production. Kosovo had a quite limited capacities of water. Comparing to the region, we are in the most bad position. We are in a critical position to be impacted by climate change. Being a part of Mediterranean, it means that we are going to be impacted. And in this position, without having enough, with limited resource of water, we are quite in a critical situation that need to be seen for this. I hope there are signs. I hope that on the next COP, when we will come, there might be open a door to be also to come as a Kosovo, and our president and our institution to be here on your own position to represent ourselves directly. Thank you.
Today we're also honored to have Mr. Gert-Jan Koopman, the DG NEAR director, and we know that DG NEAR plays a significant role when it comes to supporting the Western Balkans and Kosovo in the journey towards EU integration through different mechanisms that the EU has set in terms of also the alignment with the green agenda that the EU has. That says, I would want to have your perspective on how do you see EU assisting Kosovo and the Western Balkans generally when it comes to building the resilience that is much needed to climate change and be able to implement adaptation measures. So are there any mechanisms that are being explored by DG in this case to address this aspect of climate cooperation?
Thank you. let me congratulate President Osmani, Minister Aliou for producing this first voluntary document which testifies to your commitment not just to fighting climate change but also to joining the EU, because let me be very clear, as part of your process of integration, developing your energy policies, your environment policies and your climate change policies is absolutely critical, and therefore we see this from a double perspective and welcome it very much. It's also underscored by the fact that you produced a national energy and climate plan which you submitted to the energy community. I think there's a colleague here who will speak about that later. But seen also from the perspective of your European path. Now, in terms of support, what can we bring to support you in this process? First of all, I should say that we have already under the economic and investment plan set aside about 300 million euros, which has mobilized another 770 million euros, so a bit over €1 billion for climate and energy policies. But with our new growth plan for the Western Balkans, we're actually inviting you to develop a strategy that boosts growth and that accelerates your European path, and in doing so fully takes account of the need for transformation in the energy sector. So there's additional funding, but it is conditional on ex-ante reforms, and it's also conditional on solving some of the regional problems that hold the region back in respect of the functioning of the common regional market and your relationship with Serbia. So there's a lot riding on climate change, on European integration. There is money available under the EU budget, and I really look forward to working together very closely. We had your Deputy Prime Minister in Brussels only a few days ago with very ambitious ideas, which I very much welcome, and I'm sure that we will be able to work on developing this plan with its very strong energy and climate change component being very prominently funded by the EU. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kopman. Thank you a lot. Moving to Ms. Figai, who's the climate and just transition expert for the Energy Community Secretariat, wherein Kosovo is a contracting party. And it has a lot of obligations to adhere to, especially with the decarbonization pathway that is currently on the works. So we wanted to ask you, given your expertise in just transitions, especially for the region, and your sort of role in supervision of the alignment with Kosovo, that Kosovo energy strategy has with EU energy acquis, how do you particularly see how do you see Kosovo navigating this just transition when it faces limitations on international climate finance, and how do you think these disparities in the same level in the playing field when it comes to Western Balkans in general, because in comparison to other countries in the Western Balkans, Kosovo is not in the same level playing field as we said today. So how do you see a way forward to ensure a fair and inclusive path towards the just transition of the energy sector?
Yes, thank you for this very good question. You are, it is true, in this context you're not on the same level field, you're also one of the smallest, but you're very visible. And in the context of climate finance, I think as we already touched upon a bit, it's not happening in a political vacuum. You basically need two things: climate ambition, which you have in the voluntary NDC. And I would just like to take a very brief stop here and actually congratulate you on two things. First of all, congrats for the NDC. But actually, climate ambition is not new to Kosovo. You already mentioned the Sofia Declaration, but actually 1 year ago, Kosovo and other contracting parties committed to 2030 climate energy targets. So just under a year ago, you had such a commitment. And what I notice now, and this is the first time I'm seeing this NDC, is actually that within 1 year, you chose to follow a more ambitious target, because your NDC is more ambitious than what you agreed to last year. So this is my double congratulation. So this is one thing. So seeing the goal, and you have it there, but you also need something else. You need a plan how to achieve it. And this is, I think, to what Director General Kopman was hinting at. the National Energy and Climate Plan. We have actually received it, yes, a draft version a few months ago, and we're reviewing it right now. But this is such an important document because basically it shows how Kosovo plans to cut emissions in all of its sectors. So basically it's a development plan for Kosovo until 2030. And to such an extent, it, as an NECP, it should pinpoint what should be invested, when, and where. So actually, it's a financing roadmap. And this is very, I think, important because, first of all, investors and international donors, whoever they may be, there's also a lot of EU financing available, first of all, need predictability, and they need certainty, and they need a plan. So having such a document is already a great way forward. What's more, it also ensures there is coherency, coordination between donors. Because if they all look at the same document and they have the same vision of a goal where you want to reach, it becomes much more easier and much more efficient for financial spending in Kosovo. And maybe my last point, the issue of consistency. It is very important that all the climate documents are telling the same story, that you recommit again and again to the same objective, to the same path, because it also strengthens your credibility with whoever is your financing partner on the other side. So, yes, from me, I think that's how I would address the question. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fige. Moving to Mr. Christopher Balz, director of the German Watch, in which we kept close coordination. We had a meeting also at COP27 together. We discussed these issues together too. Thank you for being here. We wanted to ask you a question related to the work that German Watch does currently, and what is your perspective in terms of, because you always emphasize the importance of equitable treatment in international climate negotiations. So what in your role what do you think is the role of civil society when it comes to advocating for fair and inclusive climate finance mechanisms for Kosovo and other countries that are facing similar situations when it comes to access to climate finance? We saw yesterday an agreement on the loss and damage fund, which Kosovo cannot begin to think of. In fact, despite being a country with very minimal emissions historically and having no historical emissions compared to other countries that are the biggest emitters, we are still. So considering this, how do you believe this will change, and what is the role that civil society can play in really making Kosovo's voice and other nations that are finance be heard?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. And, let me start first to say a few words why I might be here. We have started to cooperate with the civil society in Kosovo in 2014-15. And many of the things which are now in the NDC, we have discussed at this stage. We hoped for this, that this might happen. And now we see, wow, a lot of this is in the NDC, in the voluntary NDC at the moment. So congratulations for this. We discussed at this stage about the coal and lignite situation. We discussed about the railway system. And so there are two important elements in this context. And we discussed this last year. I see really the progress in this regard. Really congratulations in this regard, first of all. And then, but coming to your question, leave no one behind, the president made this point, is a very strong pillar of the SDGs and of the climate agenda. And we have now a loss and damage fund, which is supposed to have direct access for all countries, vulnerable countries and regions, without one exception. And so clearly this is not fair for a country which is vulnerable. To make this point in the public and to discuss it is one point. Then on the other side, we know the UN rules and we know how to change those rules, and that we need a consensus on this with if you look to the situation, the polarization with Russia at the moment, I'm not very optimistic that we get a breakthrough in this regard quite soon. So just to be serious, no? And you know this as well, I guess. No? So one thing is to address this point. The other one is how realistic is it on the UN level, in what time frame to change it. But then for us it's a crucial issue to say, but nevertheless, you are vulnerable and you need the support necessary to move forward in this regard. So we look at this in this context. What can the German government do? What can the EU do to support this in a meaningful way? So it's not that because the UN funds are not open that no support can be delivered. And this would be very interesting to look for this path in detail. And with your ambition you are showing, I just saw the first presentation of the NDC, so I'm not able really to comment on it in detail. But if it is as ambitious as it looks, and if it also is the ambition, I see the vulnerability of your country regarding food security, regarding water issues, so there is clearly a vulnerability. And if there is a good plan how to address this, I think there should be a way to co-finance this in a meaningful way. And we are always open trying to support this in this context. If you have other ideas, we are also open to discuss this. But I do not want to give you, to make you any hopes for things where I at the moment think it's not realistic that we reach a fast progress here on the UN level for the country.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brawls. And for closing remarks, since we're run out of time, Minister Aliou, for closing remarks, please.
Actually, yeah, it is true. It's easy to do commitment. It's easy to draft a strategy and to adopt it and to put it somewhere in archives. Starting doing it is the most difficult part. The commitment of 2030 for energy that has been done when we came last year on COP, it was already done, and we were mentioning it there. And then we started to see the difficulties that are in front of us in order to achieve it. At first, where are those solar panels are going to be? Where they are going to be installed? Our national spatial plan adopted already and municipal development plans already adopted. They didn't have on there no areas identified already for that. So what we had to do, this was the first task that we put to ourselves. We immediately built the maps for solar and for wind energy and adopted the transformation of the spatial plans in order to be in the line with this commitment, and that is already has been done. Then how to bring those 100 megawatts on rooftops, since 75 of our building stock is informal. So how to give a permission for installation of roof of a illegal house. Then again we had to change our subsidiary laws for not considering them as the construction works. So this can be done. Not just this, also the making better performance, energy performance, so improving energy performance at the buildings, it has the same problem. So we have already to adopt these technical procedures that will make open this. So we are having that in mind, and we are building a plan. And I believe that the same thing is going to be done with other parts. For example, spatial planning, again, we have to do the mobility plans of every municipality in order to have adopt to implement now the strategy for multimodal transport. And even in social housing projects, for example, we've put the third component of making better life on this informal stock of the building in order to improve them, and then the state is going to be directly involved on improving the energy performance of the existing stock buildings, not just from the perspective of social housing, but also from the perspective of climate change. And this is something that together with in the government, we are installing the policies that every capital project, capital investment is going to be done in our country is going to be seen through the policies of climate change. I mean, in every sphere we are actually trying to install this because we are aware that our determination on this will open us the doors that are quite difficult to open. And I believe that by also we will open the door on UNFCCC soon.
Thank you, Minister. Your Excellency, thank you for honoring this side event. Dear guest, dear Minister, thank you, everyone. We hope to see you next year to discuss the implementation and to discuss also adaptation, and hopefully we are in a new era. We thank you for your cooperation and we'll be in touch when it comes to development and implementation of voluntary NDC. Thank you.